So after I made the first video about Pride, I realized there was like so much more I want to talk about. So the first Pride was a riot, literally. Martha P. Johnson is a trans black woman who was part of the community in New York, where Stonewall was, and the police were harassing LGBTQAI2S plus people constantly. They would come in, they would arrest people, they would beat them. It was horrible. So she threw a brick at the police, and there was a riot. I believe it lasted 3 days. And she, along with other queer elders, paved the way for the liberty that I enjoy today to be able to speak to you about this. And I am so grateful for their sacrifice, right? And it's important to recognize, the history of what Pride is in North America and the world in order to move forward to liberate everyone around the world. And this brings me to the topic of intersectionality. So, being LGBTQAI2S plus is one thing. To be racialized, a person of color, a person with a disability, a woman, non-binary, these are additional intersections that exist that can exclude you from the community. We're getting better, right? Like it was in the beginning years of Pride, like it was very dominated by white gay men. Pride committees around the world are still dominated by white gay men. I don't think it should be like this. I don't think we should have a board of like president, vice president. I think we should have committees of individual groups, right? So, Two Sovereign Spirits, Pink Flamingo, Black Lives Matter, these groups need to be sitting in a circle and equally sharing their voice in order to create the Pride experience here. I think the age of there being a gay pride committee is done, and I think it needs to be discontinued completely. Rainbow watching. So this is a big pet peeve of mine, and you've probably seen me rant about it on Facebook. There are tons of companies which will create rainbow whatever, pride whatever, but the people who run those companies are not part of the community. They are not donating to charities in order to help eliminate the oppression of LGBTQAI2S plus people. They are just making money off of our pain, right? Like that's all they're doing. I hate these companies with like so much of my spirit because they are profiting off of trauma, right? That rainbow flag was created so that we could identify each other and build community around it. And I do not support companies, and I report them on Facebook, and I rant in their DMs, and then I vocally support queer artists, designers, companies that donate to charities. Like these are the people that need to be uplifted. Corporate pride is also an issue, so these are the companies that'll splash a rainbow on their businesses for a month out of the year, but really do absolutely nothing to help the liberation of queer people. Also an issue. Trans rights are essential to the LGBTQAI2S plus community. Trans people have been around since time immemorial. They deserve to be part of the community and protected. They experience here in North America the highest rate of murder compared to any other demographic, and suicide. And that's absolutely unacceptable and needs to end. We need to protect them and keep them safe. And I don't even want to give space to the arguments that come up about bathrooms and children and all of those things. Gender expression is valid. Gender expression is fluid. For some people, yeah, it starts out that they think they're trans and then they realize they're not. For other people, they realize they're trans late in their life. That is all valid, and they all need to be recognized and supported. Being sober in the queer community is hard. The history of LGBTQ is bars and bathhouses and places where alcohol is consumed. So the entire social structure of dating as a queer person was built around drinking, right? There's whole cultures built around drug use. And so being queer and sober is hard. How am I supposed to, help? How am I supposed to connect with people if I'm not going to a gay bar? These are challenges that I have faced in sober life, and it's getting better. There's gay brunches now. There's more activities and events and community work that is not centered around alcohol, and that is much needed, especially for the youth. You may know that I was a surrogate. This was a lifelong dream for me. Early in my life, I knew someone who came out as gay, and I said, if you ever want to have a child, I give you my womb. That person has not yet chosen to have children, but it was still a really important thing for me to want to do, is to have a child for a gay couple. And I had the opportunity to do that in 2017, and it was the best thing I have ever done with my life. I'm child-free happily, and I do not consider myself qualified to raise children in this lifetime. Or maybe I'll change my mind, who knows. But the act of being a surrogate was the most powerful event for me, because scientifically there is actually some evidence that a gay sibling is born to a family with 3 or more children. And some biologists suspect that this is in order to help their hetero siblings raise the children, right? To be that auntie or uncle, or we need a gender neutral name for that. Uncle? No. That can actually help care for the children, right? And they are good caregivers. And so it's absolutely natural for a gay couple, lesbian couple, to want to raise children. It's biologically in line with the evolution of why homosexuality exists within the human race. Sex work is work. A lot of my LGBTQAI2S+ family have engaged in, I shouldn't say a lot, many have engaged in sex work. I consider sex work to be work, valid. There are a million reasons for this, the least of which is that it is a human need to have contact and closeness and intimacy, and we're not always going to be able to get that from dating or relationships. Particularly, this comes up for people with disabilities who don't necessarily build those intimate relationships easily. So the service of being able to access somebody who comes into the space with skills and talents to be intimate, oftentimes without judgment, is important work. I'm often reminded of the ancient pagan practice of the temple priestess. The temple priestess was a sex worker. People would make offerings to her, to the goddess, and in exchange she would provide sexual favors for them. And that was powerful work. It was powerful spiritual work, and I fully support the decriminalization and protection of all sex workers across the world, and the destigmatization of it as well. Straight pride's not a thing because straight people aren't oppressed. This entire world is built for men, their heteronormative relationships, and families that they build from those relationships. And at no time in history or within the future, will that be oppressed? That is the default setting of our world right now. The same way that buildings are built for able-bodied people as a default setting. The same way work is built for neurotypical people, and neurodivergent people have difficulties fitting into that. So there is always going to be protections in place. And straight pride is abuse to the queer community. And I have nothing nice to say about that. Super straight was something that was happening on TikTok for a minute. Again, not part of the queer community, just people who are trolling and abusing. And, you know, allyship is real and valid and important and wanted. That's not it. Two-spirit ceremonies are something I have not had the opportunity to do yet. There's very amazing elders in the community who are publicly two-spirit, who perform ceremony for two-spirit, who welcome us and encourage us to express ourselves within ceremony as it is fit, as we see fit. There's also many elders who are still indoctrinated into the Roman Catholic Church and their dogma and patriarchy of heteronormative binary genders, roles. And I'm seeing that vanish very quickly as we move towards decolonization, and I am so grateful for that. You know, if you are a safe elder for two-spirit people and you make that public, thank you. Thank you. I am so grateful to you. We need more, right? And sometimes I dream about the opportunity to become that one day, to be a ceremony holder and a medicine carrier who is two-spirit, who can fulfill those traditional roles and uphold those teachings and pass on those teachings. And I'm working towards it, but it's you know, it's a slow process. I think that's all I have written down, but I just want to add this second part onto the video because, you know, it is sunshine and rainbows and love, but there's also politics. It is politics. Gender politics, sexual identity politics are a thing. I value and appreciate the politicians who are vocally in support of our rights and freedoms and liberation, who recognize the intersectionality of being a queer person with a disability, you know, who's two-spirit, who faces barriers in the world. Like, these are really important and need to be recognized as part of the community in a valid, contributing, positive way. And I am so grateful to anybody who shares this, because Facebook and Google phone were being really difficult when I was trying to upload the first video. So thank you to those who share these videos. I wish you happy Pride. Mwah!